Hey Kriegers, Robert here. Sorry this all took so long. But we are finally ready to show you guys our Harmony custom amiibo. So, since you guys have already waited so long on this, let's just immediately get started. Let's begin with the 3D model. I wanted to include as many references to Atlantis in the model as I could. So, I started with Harmony in this pose from this artwork in the shop. But instead of her just squatting in the middle of the shop for some reason, I wanted to add a reference to what you could actually use the items for in-game. So, I used my experience in SolidWorks to make a model of a locker, since at that time we did not have a locker model on the modelsresource.com yet.
Amiibo! Alright! You know me!
Then I also wanted to add some gear, since you could also add these to the locker. With one of my favorite headpieces, the Octolite goggles.
Booty!
I also wanted to include a reference to her music career with ABXY. At first I was going to include this guitar since we just had the model on the models resource, but looking through my other models, I remembered that I still had this one with a keyboard. Since she uses a modified one, it seemed only fitting to include this one instead. If only we had the Game Boy models on the models resource website at the time. Then I could have made the keyboard into her modified chiptune one. At least it's still made for a way easier piece to 3D print. But with the keyboard now on top, I still needed another place for the goggles. So after quickly opening up the model in SolidWorks, I added a quick hook that I could then hang the goggles from to complete the model for now. Then I quickly put it through the slicer to leave me with this model. In that time, I was just jumping between so many different projects that took priority over Harmony that I just never got to finishing her. But once I finally got the time to continue working on her, I wanted to do her and Hotlantis justice. So I wanted to give her a quick upgrade. So not only did I make her a little bit larger to have her match with the scale of the other amiibos, I also placed the goggles on the other side of the locker to give her a little bit more space on the top of her head. Otherwise I wouldn't have even had space for her little clownfish. And I added a headset and a Moai statue to add even more references to all of the small models that you could get for the locker. This way I could reference even more things that you can get from Atlantis. And to start painting, I swapped out the blue of the older model with a nice minty green with the Army Painter's Toxic Mist. I wanted to warm up with an easier part of the model since, at that time, it had been a while since my last amiibo. So, a white was first applied to the keys of the keyboard, with a dark stone as the base for the Moai and the clownfish. Next I used some bright red on the edges of her sneakers. And while that's right, I took some time to worm my way through her hair to add the very light skin tone with a mix of white and barbarian flesh. This mix was a 3 parts white to 1 part skin tone, cause Harmony is a real gamer that barely goes outside. Speaking of never seeing the sun, next up is a moonlight yellow for skirt and hat. Now I have to very carefully add the black to other keys and the body of the keyboard. And this is also used as a base coat for the Octolith goggles and the future golden ends of the Ultra Hand. Easy Muna, future. Then I add some elemental bolt for the teal on the bottom of her head. And yes, I did also add it on top, but after looking at the model again, with the textures on, since I still needed to figure out how that swirl on the top of her head worked for later, I also realized that the top was also yellow. But once I had this fixed, I could then use a bright red again to add an edge of red on the bill. I can also add some deep sea to the Ultra Hand. And if I mix this 50-50 with some ultramarine blue, I could also use this as a base for her shoes. And since I've already had the moonlight yellow, a demonic yellow for the sneakers, and a bright red on my wet palette, I might as also add some lava orange and just use all of these warm shades to make a nice mixer light on the keyboard. Then I can also start to add some metallics with a bright silver for the Octolith goggles on the little hook, and the lock on the locker. Then I mix some black into some necromancer cloak to get this very dark grey for a t-shirt. And at last, we can also add the gold to the ends of the Ultra Hands. Okay, fine, now you can use it.
I love gold!
And speaking of at last, finally I can add the biggest part of Harmony design, her pixie pink tentacles. Wait, she's a sea anemone. Can I still call them tentacles? You know what, let's just keep it on hair for now. That way I can at least continue with some more pixie pink on the edges of her eyes and the little droop on the right side of her mouth. At least after I'd already added a layer of white to the middle of her eyes. Then back to the hair, I now add a layer of jungle green, which I then tip with some more demonic yellow. Then I make some mixes of pink and green, and the green with the yellow to use these to smooth the wet colors into some smooth transitions. With these I was really afraid that the mix of pink and green would turn into some really ugly color. But you know what, on the wet palette it kinda did. But to be honest, on the Amiibo itself, it doesn't look too half bad. Which, whew, that was a real lifesaver. Cause sometimes real life can turn out much uglier than what you can see on the artwork. Then back to the eyes, I'd already added an outer layer of pink. Then I used some green from the tentacles for the next layer. Then I added a dot of crystal blue. And I finished this with the pupils of pixie pink. And do you remember those weird swirls that I spoke about earlier? I finally figured out how to do those over the cap. So now, with some more uniform grey, I can finally add these to the cap. Now I just have these fun, colorful hairbands left, which make use of so many different colors that we've got on our wet palette at this point. We've got ultramarine blue, which goes into pink, which goes into deep blue, jungle green, and lastly even a freaking demonic yellow. And then this pattern gets repeated 3 times all around these 3 little headbands, which also got buried deep within her hair, which made it even more fun to get all of these colors in. So for a bit of an easier job, we can add the little face onto our clownfish, including the big old stripe in the middle of his body. Now for the complete opposite side of the spectrum, we now have to do the hardest part of this Amiibo, by painting on the graphic on Harmony's t-shirts. This in and of itself would have not been too difficult since it's just some random geometrical shapes, But since I have to do this behind the very fragile Ultra hands, yeah, it's suddenly got a bit tougher. To break it down, I first started with these shapes in jungle green, which already required 3 layers of paint. Then on the left side I add this drop shadow of pink, and on the right side I add this drop shadow with orc blood. Now all that's left was to remove the masking tape and do a little bit of cleanup. And now, we've completed our Harmony custom amiibo. Hey Kriegers, Robert here, and we hope you enjoyed our Harmony custom amiibo. Before anything else, I first wanted to deeply apologize to each and every one of you for how long you guys have had to wait for this video. It's just, 2025 has already been a really challenging year for me in terms of motivation and planning, but lately I've been having a lot of problems in my personal life, one after another, thrown on top of that. That's why it's been so difficult for me to find my footing with all of these projects that I want to do for the channel and the things I need to solve in my own life. So, I hope you guys will understand and will keep supporting us while I try to slowly find my new rhythm with everything I want to do. Starting with these 2 cosplays that I'm currently working on. So the next video will probably take just a little bit longer since I want to fully complete the cosplay before I make the video. But I can promise you that the result will be worth the wait. But as a little compensation, I will at least try to keep you guys more updated with more community posts here on YouTube. And if you want to see even more, you can find us online more often in the WVD Discord server. But with that, that's going to be all from us for now. Keep those creative gears turning, and we will see you guys in our next video.